Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to my guide for Chaac. Chaac is an AoE damage based soul lane warrior who does damage. He does other things too, but that's what he's best at, just chunking people. In this vein, Chaac has been seen as a jungler and even as a mid laner too, but since solo is where he's seen most of the time, that's what I'll be focusing on today. Build-wise, Chaac certainly likes to go a bruiser build, but like Sun Wukong, clearly benefits from adding straight-up damage items to the mix as well, and feels worthless when built full tank. Currently, Chaac is almost never seen without Transcendence, so build what you will, but just know that this item is key to both his damage and sustain. Relic-wise, Chaac absolutely needs Blink, in the mid to late game especially. Even if Chaac's damage doesn't fall off, without Blink he has a lot of trouble applying it in a practical way. Second relic, well, that's mostly just up in the air, but buying beads as a get out of jail free card as well as an anti-peel option is a solid all-rounder. We were just talking about Gilgamesh, who needs to run around the map, and Yamojo, who has her own energy bar, so let's slow it down with one of the simplest passives in SMITE. After 5 successful basic attacks on any enemy, Chaac's next ability will cost no mana and will have its cooldown reduced by a flat 2 seconds, even if it doesn't hit anything. And that's it, really. You want to go for this passive whenever you can while laning, but obviously don't just stand there basic attacking, holding your abilities back. The idea here is during trades, you use your abilities, basic attack a bit, then once your abilities come up again, you now have the passive to start the cycle all over again. So use it where applicable, like on waves and before taking trades, but don't just stand there basic attacking with all of your abilities up just so you can use the passive. The most important ability to use this passive with is Chaac's first ability. Chaac throws his axe, which lands in a medium range damaging AoE. This is the entirety of his first ability, but the axe on the ground can be interacted with via his second and third ability. As for actually hitting this, keep in mind that the travel time will change depending on the range you throw it at, so try to keep it simple and close the gap a bit before using it, so you essentially don't even have to aim it. Alternatively, you can always go for it max range, since this means you have to lead your axe the same amount every time. But what does that axe do once it's out there? Well, that's where Chaac's second ability comes into play. Chaac spins around, dealing damage to all enemies in the area, gaining hefty protections for every enemy hit. A decent ability on its own, but it's how it interacts with Chaac's first ability that it becomes great. Whenever Chaac's axe is in the ground from his first ability, Chaac will always teleport to the axe's location when this ability is activated, dealing small damage to enemies between Chaac and the axe, and of course performing the spin once teleported. And there's no way to choose between spinning or teleporting. If Chaac's axe is on the ground, you're teleporting when you activate this ability. So it's a great ability. In terms of dealing damage, if you hit your 1, you want to 2 in almost every time. Don't forget to use the teleport damage by lining yourself up with the axe when you can. Not only does it do respectable damage, but it gives Chaac decent movement which lets him conduct mind games in scenarios when he's trying to escape. This of course is case by case, but generally if you have a high CC enemy on you, you want to 1-2 as soon as you can. But if their CC is more lacking, you can 1 and doodle about with your 2 ready to fire, spreading yourself out from your axe's location. Then once the enemy is spread out, either teleport yourself to the person near the X, if they have low kill potential, or if the person chasing you has low kill potential, simply wait at the teleport and don't use it, instead peeling with your third ability. And of course if they both beeline it to either your axe or your current location, go to where they're not. With all that said, when getting chased or when trying to engage without blink, 1-2ing is usually your best bet. When I said Chaac has to teleport to his axe if it's on the ground with his second ability, that wasn't entirely true, thanks to his third ability. Chaac creates an AoE around him which heavily slows the attack speed of any enemies in it, and will begin healing himself every half second. If Chaac has his axe in the ground, the axe will also emit an AoE, double the size of Chaac's but sharing the slow and attack speed slow, stacking the movement speed so both are affecting the same enemy. And the heal on this ability is absolutely mega, and while Chaac's power scaling is decent, this heal is the actual reason you go Transcendence. It's an insane power number, making this heal the biggest single self heal in the game. Of course, if you want to use this ability as a trade tool you can, and just let they be able to heal you while you trade. But if things are quiet, it's totally fine to just pop this heal once you have Transcendence online. Again, a brutally simple ability, but with a few notable interactions. First and foremost, as I just mentioned, you can use it to stop your 2 from teleporting you. So you can 1-3-2, and this sets you up for rushdown with the slow and sustain from your 3, as well as getting the full damage from your 1-2, while basic attacking in between abilities of course. Then there's yet another mind game. You of course want to chuck your first ability out whenever you can in teamfights for poke, but more than poke, it enables the mind game of holding onto your second and third abilities, and making the opponents guess if you'll bring down the rain or bring down the pain. As for bringing down the rain, it's a great way to force enemies out. The slow is seriously impactful, and the area is literally unavoidable in most parts of the jungle. This is the way you want to interact with the axe in these late game situations, as the 1-2 teleport is rather slow and gets replaced by blink as the game goes on, for less reactability from opponents. The main reason you want to keep your initiations as quick as possible is so that you can use your ultimate as soon as you can. Chaac becomes CC immune and gains damage reduction for 1 second, then slams down in a huge AoE which deals heavy damage, knocks up, and silences for a whopping 3 seconds. This ability is Chaac when it comes to late game teamfights. While his damage is formidable early and mid game, you need a great Chaac ult in the late game to be effective. Hence why Blink is a shoe-in relic for him. You use it almost always as secondary engage, as in when your support has already engaged, and use it primarily on squishy targets, which sets you up perfectly for a 1-2-3 or 1-3-2 combo so you can begin zoning them. But the ultimate has to hit. Going in raw with your core abilities late game is going to get you killed. The ability is also a great get out of jail free card, not only for you, but for your team as well. The instantaneous CC immunity makes it great for avoiding ganks in the early and mid game, and if the enemy team gets a good engagement, this is a perfect tool just to lay down and break the entire team fight apart. Basically, if this ability hits any squishy target while you have teammates nearby to follow up, it was good use of the ability. This is easily Chaac's simplest ability, since all it really does is set him up perfectly for everything we've been covering up until this point, which leads us neatly into some combos with Chaac. For leveling, you want your 2 at level 1, your 1 at level 2, and your 3 at level 3. But if you're going against a god with strong clear, you can skip leveling your 3rd ability and put another level into your 1st ability. From there, it's a bit of a toss-up from what I've seen, so I'll just share what I do, which is 1, 3, 2, and leveling the ult whenever I can. With that said, I've seen pros level the 2 first and the 1 last, level the 1 first and the 3 last. I mean, it seems like it was with Gilgamesh. There seems to be a bit of personal preference here. All I'll say is 1, 3, 2 is the safe leveling order, and then you can switch it to 1, 2, 3 in situations where the enemy team is going to have heavy anti-heal. And the only reason I bring this up is because I seriously went up against like 6 op washes while making this video. It was terrible. Chaac was in no man's land for quite some time, but after a slew of buffs over the past couple years modernizing him, he's been a sleeper monster ever since outside of pro play. His damage and the frequency you can use his damage, thanks to his passive and his base cooldowns, is nearly unmatched in the warrior class, and that ridiculous heal on his 3rd ability is literally unmatched for any other warrior. So play Chaac right, and it's pretty hard to lose with it. Well, in the early and mid game at least. Chaac, even with Transcendence in his build, will start to fall off a bit damage-wise in the later stages of the game, so you really need to get yourself fed before then to help keep yourself relevant. That said though, get yourself fed enough to start making early rotations as Chaac, and the enemy team might be surrendering long before your damage falls off. So don't be afraid to get aggressive with Chaac and really force yourself into a lead, because one good Chaac ult from ahead, and you can practically solo an entire team. That's all I have on Chaac for now. Thanks for watching.